if you were to calculate center of mass, you basically say, okay, this is the anchor point. This is the middle of his anchor point at the very least. If he had 2 feet, it'd be in the middle of his body. But for center of mass, you'd be like, okay, so here's the vertical line from his anchor point on the ground. How much of his mass is on the left of it? And how much of his mass is on the right of it? It should be equal. It should be equal. Now, as you can see here, unless this sword weighs like 100 pounds, which it might, he's not balanced at all. He's definitely going to topple over. Like he should, because he has way too much mass on this side, right? So if you actually wanted this to work with this pose, right, where he's actually lifting his foot, you would actually need to see something a bit more like this. I would say something like this would feel much more balanced. Like this is more closer to like a baseball pitch pose. You know what I mean? Of course, I don't actually recommend this pose personally because of the action that follows, right? This was an animation review I did on stream today of a user named Clayaga. You can check out his YouTube here, but if you want your animation to be reviewed on stream by me, you can submit it in the Professor Goo review channel on Discord. We'll choose one randomly each day, and if you're there in the stream that day, we'll be able to go over it. I'll figure all this out later, but hopefully you guys enjoy the video and enjoy the streams. See you guys soon. Let's begin the review, shall we? Shall we? Here we go. All right, so... Animations are great. Okay. Yo, okay. So this is, it's currently an unfinished piece is what Clayaga said. So that's just work in progress, and keep that in mind. But let's go over a couple things here. I think, honestly, if it's trying to achieve that sort of lo-fi gaming style, it's worked. That's sort of the coolest thing about it. I think as an animation style, this is gonna look passable for sure. Now the question then is like, well, what can we improve, right? Because I think generally speaking, lo-fi games are generally gonna have like lower quality animations. Do we want to sort of keep that like quality down on purpose, or do we want to sort of like make sure that we're taking advantage of the things that we do have, that we are good at, that we can be good at with you know, non-game animation, since this of course has the freedom of actually changing cameras or changing animations as you like, and we don't have to have like repetitive vitals and stuff if we don't want to. Now I do think this is good, like this framing, this whole like shebang. Let me just change this to green because we all love green. Green's the best color. But yeah, so this whole thing is good. I think generally speaking, the format gives a lot of liberty for exactly the kind of animation that we're going for. So let's talk about exactly what we can improve. This run, actually pretty good. I think this is pretty good. The only thing I would nitpick about it really is just like to lift the foot a bit more, like right around here. That's the only thing, honestly. Other than that, it feels very gamey and feels very stylized, which is good. So that already is good points. That's good. And then if we go to this attack right here, a wonderful anticipation. Let me see. Yeah, I'm just taking out the sound. Okay, one thing I would say for this particular attack animation, the camera work could use a little bit of work. Even in a lo-fi game, I don't think they would quite zoom in so suddenly with the rotation and then zoom back out. So this is something that I actually think is very, very important for camera work in general. You guys have to be careful of using the camera work too liberally, because it will make people slightly nauseous if not done correctly. I don't think this actually goes into the realm of nausea, but it has that sort of quality, right? This particular movement of camera work, what it does is it's making a motion that is kind of physically impossible if you were a cameraman. And that's where you have to be careful. So I would say like right here, the momentum of the camera gets kind of ignored. Ideally, if you did want to do a zoom in here, I would actually not rotate the camera at all, if possible, or rotate it ahead of time. Not at the end here, really. And I know right now it's basically just 2 keyframes with the, you can see the rotation is sort of like, it's like this, you know? This is sort of the movement of the, this is sort of the movement of the camera, right? So I think with that, it's like, if you wanted this kind of motion, I don't know if you would want the rotation at all, to be honest, but if you wanted that kind of motion, I would either slow it down or make it more like this, right? So if you wanted to get something more like, hang on, I'm just draw a separate arrow. If you wanted to get more of a camera motion like this, you would have to make sure that the rotation is properly centered and stuff ahead of time, or make sure that the interpolation is linear. So this looks like a Bezier curve. So sometimes in the graph editors, you'll see the curve will probably, I don't have the blend file on me, but the curve will probably look something like this, right? For the camera work. And if the axes are looking like that, you're going to get something a little weird like that. But if you just change the curve handles to vector in Blender, boom, it'll look super smooth. So even if you have like a translation vector here and you also have a rotation vector going somewhere else, you'll get a linear transformation that looks a bit more like this. So that will actually give you a lot more sort of control over the camera if you know what you're doing. So I personally don't recommend doing Beziers for these quick zooms. But yeah, so I think ultimately the interpolation is really the culprit here. You could get the same animation with just different interpolation. It might look better. On the other hand, let's also consider if the zoom is necessary, right? So like, I think, hang on, let me just pull up another, oopsies. Let me pull up a dope sheet real quick, because I want to change my annotations real quick as well. Dope sheet, grease pencil. I'm using Blender just to do these drawovers, by the way. I highly recommend it. It's a very, very cool, just like editing software. The VSC, you have like the annotations and stuff. You can do whatever you want with. It's great. So let me just turn these off. Delete that. So I think generally speaking, this zoom may not be super necessary. Again, it could be a reference to the game, but I think it could be done a little better. If it were to be a zoom, yeah, I think the zoom is actually good. So I actually would recommend a linear approach there. So let's just assume that's the case, and we'll also linearly zoom out, and that'll be good as well. So yeah, I'd say keep the zoom. The zoom is good, but let's just clean that up. And then from there, first of all, I just want to say like these idols are really cute. I think these idols are great. I don't really have any kind of like feedback on that in particular. I think it works for the style really well. So that's cool. That attack animation is pretty cute. So that works pretty well. I would say like if you want it to feel a little bit stronger, I would lean him back a bit more. So like right here, you're seeing that like, you know, if we were to draw a cube in 3D space, like I would say probably look a bit like this. You know, he's got like his hand sticking out here. I would say if you wanted to have him feel a bit stronger, I would rotate him even, wait, hang on, I would rotate him even further so that he looks a bit more like this, right? So his glove is like here-ish, right? And then like his other glove is actually a little bit further behind, where maybe even obscured a little bit by a silhouette, so that you can see he's rotated a bit more sort of like this way, right? Then you get a bigger wind up essentially, which helps a lot with getting a stronger punch down. Now you already like the camera change, like first of all, it obscures his face a little bit. I would encourage you guys to think about silhouettes a little bit more if you can. In which case, like I would say that this would look better probably as, yeah, something like this, where you can actually see like his eyeballs, for example, from this angle, and then like have something that looks, what are these shoes? Hang on. Oh, okay, I see now. I was like, what are these feet looking things? Okay, I understand. Yeah, so this is actually going to be probably more like this. That's actually interesting. Now let me take a look at these feet now that I know their feet. I think uh he's leaning back right now, but he's actually falling over. Because the problem is that there's nothing balancing him as he leans back. Because he's just lifting his foot forward rather than backwards. That's a little bit of a problem. This is a small thing because, like, of course his feet are really, really tiny. And again, this works. It's cute. The style kind of allows for this. But if you were to have something that felt a little bit more physically accurate, I would actually move his foot back. Instead of like leaning it back like that, I would actually have him take a step and just like have his foot just like land there. You know what I mean? Maybe like there-ish. But that way he's actually supporting himself as he, as he is ultimately leaning backwards. Let me get a copy of this frame here so I can just do that, because the timing is a little bit later, but I want to keep the rest of the face there. So yeah, something like that would be good. And then from this pose, then we would actually have something that would look more like this, where the other foot might be like here-ish somewhere. We'll see. And then you'll actually have the other glove. Ideally, I think would be like right around here. So just looping back to our silhouette discussion just a second ago. Yeah, if you have a silhouette that looks a bit more like this, is a terrible drawing, of course, but it is what it is. Let me just erase some stuff here so it's more clear. But yeah, a silhouette that looks more like this is going to be stronger, right? So you have a bigger wind up here where you can actually like wind it up and then he'll punch this way. So that'll actually make it a lot more powerful when he does ultimately go to this. This is a great pose here. Although I do recommend sticking his fist out a bit more. So it's like you have a line of action here. That'd be great as well. And then you have this face. Hello. I'm just going to trace over the rest of this pose because it's great. So yeah, this is a great silhouette, by the way. I think it's worth mentioning. Let's see. Yeah, I think actually this foot should also be should technically be further back if you want to talk about like his actual pose here. I don't know if he has knees. I don't think he has knees, but let's just pretend he does. So yeah, so then you would actually get this pose, which feels very, very strong. So if you want to take a look at how this pose goes to this pose, you can kind of see how much more of a difference it makes between the green lines here compared to the green line here, and then compared to the original render, and see which one feels stronger, right? So this is very sort of like Mr. Krabsy, right, when it comes to the silhouette, which I think is a good reference when it comes to how they pose silhouettes. Mr. Krabs is a very like dynamic character. He always has very dynamic poses because of his strong silhouette. So that's really good. I think that's a small thing. Ultimately, I think this pose works pretty well. And the silhouette works a little better from this angle, so it just sort of depends on how you do it. I still think it could be even stronger if he just extended his fist out forward. But yeah, so those are the main points for that. Generally speaking, the rest of it's pretty good. So let's see what else we can pull apart. I think ultimately, again, this works for the style, but we're just gonna see what else we can improve within the style limitations, right? Let's see. This is an interesting one. So first of all, I just want to point out, Clay, you got a little thing coming out. You can't show this, man. If you're gonna put your hand behind your back, you gotta make sure it's not visible when the item spawns. Okay, so anyway, just saying, yeah, this is something I would change if possible. So maybe don't reach the hand as far back. We also have some clipping here. This is something that games do all the time, but I wouldn't recommend allowing it to happen willy-nilly. I would only do it for a good reason. So clipping is an interesting topic. I think a lot of people, it's a bit of a hot debate. I think like clipping being acceptable or not is like, it's a good question, right? It's a little controversial. I don't know for sure whether it's good or bad. I personally try to avoid clipping, but if it's there, it's there. My main thing is if you are going to have clipping in, your animations, do it for the reason of it helps the motion feel better, right? So for example, like if you have a really, really thick dress that makes it really hard to animate things naturally, for example, I'm just gonna call out Ruby for a second. Ruby's skirt and Weiss's skirt, In fact, most girls with skirts that are poofy you can't let their hands relax. Like they just can't relax. The moment their hands go down to their side, it squashes the skirt in real life. But in animation, it would just clip through the skirts. So there's a lot of instances where, like, maybe lifting the hand awkwardly over the skirt could look worse than just letting the hand clip for just a couple of frames. That's probably true mostly for, like, a lot of the action sequences where you kind of want a specific angle for the hand or the arm to be spinning or rotating. And in order to do that properly, you may need it to clip through the skirt, and maybe you don't have time to actually animate the skirt to get out of the way, right? In which case, I would say clipping is fine. Now, in this particular case, I don't see any particular reason why it has to clip. It seems to me like it could just be edited to work a little better if you were to have the arm come out this way, right? So I would recommend doing that personally. If you can do it, then do it. Like, it doesn't have to clip. Have it move out a little. No, sorry, that's a terrible drawing. Hang on. Let me get a little bit of a better angle here. So this would probably come out more like, more like this, I would say. Boop, bada bing, bam. That's a little cubular. And bring it forward a little bit too. And then, like, here, you would see it still just a little bit because it's, interpolating and stuff. So that way you're not rushing to get behind your back either. And just to be clear, this has depth to it. Make sure that's clear. This is, oh my God, this perspective is killing me. Hang on. Okay, there we go. But yeah, so I would say if you can do that, that'd be great. The rest of this pose is fine. I think it'll disappear eventually, and that's sort of okay. I would say, of course, again, just don't let this show. Don't let it show. I think right here, from a silhouette perspective, I actually would recommend actually having a little bit of elbow showing, just so it's more clear what he's doing. Yeah, like, I would just sort of keep that elbow visible, just a bit. Otherwise, it's sort of like, okay, where did this arm go? And then when you pull it out here, again, we have clipping here. So I think this is something where, like, if you actually do it in real life, if you pull something out, you'll notice that the elbow kind of leads. And so when the elbow is leading, you actually might see something different. Right now, the IK hand is leading, or FK, I don't know. But I would recommend a shape that looks a bit more like this. So this actually would be a little bit more natural if you were to have something like this, where you notice that from a perspective, the elbow is actually like sort of rotated towards camera a little bit, right? Like a little bit towards camera. I didn't draw that arrow very well, but you gotta know what I mean. And then eventually you can kind of get this to look a little better here, where you finally do lift it, kind of like you have now, which is good. But yeah, not quite as lifted up yet, because you want to make sure that there's a proper transition between the two. And then, yeah, around here you might be able to have this pose somewhere around there, which is good as it is. And it'll be holding a ball. So I think that sort of explains it a little bit. You can kind of see it in motion here. So it's sort of like this, keeping the silhouette there and then having the elbow lead on the way out. That will not only allow you to have less clipping, I think, but also a more natural motion. So you can see that the elbow, like, moves out a little bit to avoid that clipping, and then has a stronger silhouette, and then it comes in at the same pose that you have now. So that's the main thing I would change there. It's a really small thing, but I think it would help a ton just to get this to feel a bit more polished. Yeah, let's see. The other things, it's like, this is a small thing, but depending on how you want to do the head animation stuff, usually, like, head animation should follow something kind of similar to, like, eye animation. Eye animation is a whole topic, by the way. Like, eye darts and like eye acting and stuff like that, eye movements. I could do a whole stream about that at some point if you guys are interested, because I think, like, the whole concept of eye movements and human eye contact and all these things is a really big topic that adds a lot to animation, a ton to animation. Now, the head and the eyes are related. They're very closely related because typically the eyes will lead the head. And so if you want to have a convincing head motion, you kind of have to imagine where the eyes are going. Now, in this particular case, you don't really need eye movement because it's a game, it's a game model that doesn't have eye movement. That style works. But you want to sort of think about, well, what would the head do if the eyes did exist? And I think like if that were the case, I would try to have the head movement to be a little bit more, what's the word? I want to say categorized, but I don't think that's the right word. That's not the right word at all. I guess quantized maybe is the best word if we're talking about quantum mechanics, which is probably not the best comparison. But what I mean basically by that is having specific poses, right? So you have this, right now you have this head motion that's sort of like, it transitions from this pose, right? From this pose here, and it goes to this pose. So you have basically two poses for the head, and that's it. And you have a third one on the way out, and like that is just sort of like Bezier interpreted, and it doesn't quite give the impression of realistic head movement, in my opinion. So if you wanted to give realistic head movement, what you need is you have poses that are held for a few seconds or a few frames. So you might have this, and then maybe you hold this. Let me just draw a quick face plane here, right? Boop, boop. So you hold this head here, and then you hold that for a little bit. Yeah, hang on, let me just create a new note for this so you can actually get this to stay on its head. So you hold this pose for just a few frames, and then you might transition it to a new pose, basically the next pose that you already have, to just like exist here. Which again is fine in terms of its placement. I think that's fine. More or less like that. And then I would say like, in order to transition between this pose and this pose, I would probably have it not transition until here. So like I would actually keep the pose similarly angled to the last pose. And maybe like if you had eye animation, you could imagine that the eyes start moving a little bit earlier than the head does, right? Oh God, I just realized there's no eyes on here. Oh God. I drew this cube, but it looks like the same angle because it's basically 90 degrees. Bro, that is like the least helpful thing. Okay, hang on. We gotta draw some googly eyes. Hold up. Smile. Okay. All right. Let me just delete this one. There we go. So he has a head. And then now he doesn't. Let me just clarify that he has ears. Let's just pretend he has ears for a sec, because yeah, I cannot believe that this cube did not work as well as I thought without in betweens. Okay, I'm gonna draw an ear on this side so that we know what side of this cube is looking where. Okay, so this is his ear now. Okay, we're clear on that. Okay, cool, excellent. So now, as he turns over that way, I would have him continue to look that way, basically. For the most part, just still looking backwards. Here, and then eventually looking up. And when he looks up, I think he could follow his hand a little bit, but not too accurately. Because again, like I would say head movement and eye movement are the same. Well, with eye movement, you have eye darts. There's also such a thing as head darts. So like I would just keep the head relatively still until you absolutely need to move him. Sort of smooth head movements are reserved for, more like specific situations, more niche situations, in my opinion. Like when you're specifically tracking motion or whatever it is. So right here, this feels a little bit better. I'd say we can have it start. We can come in a little sooner here. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, you can see it's just a little bit more quantized, I should say. So it's like it just sort of keeps certain poses intact for a bit longer, as opposed to smoothly drifting between the three. So yeah, that's the main thing I would give for that. That's really the only thing. I think the rest of it is gonna be honestly a lot of like nitpicks that don't have to be done necessarily, but I think would be good. So this is another one here. I'd say this foot shouldn't lift up. This is actually probably where things start deviating away from game animation. This is gonna be fun. So the rest of this stuff here, yes, yes. This is interesting. So let's talk about this baseball bat swing. This is actually a really good one to critique because this has a couple problems. This particular animation has a couple problems. The biggest thing is probably center of mass. Center of mass is one of my biggest animation principles that I personally follow, and I don't think enough people really talk about it. I don't know why. Like, people don't really talk about center of mass that much. They do a little bit every now and then, but it almost feels like this niche thing that people kind of like ignore every now and then as like it's an advanced topic. I don't think it's an advanced topic. I think it's a very, very crucial part of animation and getting animation to look good. And understanding the fundamental of it is a big part of that. Right now, what center of mass means is basically where is he standing in a way that feels like he's balanced. And right here, you can see that like you have one anchor point on the ground right here. And if you were to calculate center of mass, you basically say, okay, this is the anchor point. This is the middle of his anchor point at the very least. If he had 2 feet, it'd be in the middle of his body. But for center of mass, you'd be like, okay, so here's the vertical line from his anchor point on the ground. How much of his mass is on the left of it? And how much of his mass is on the right of it? It should be equal. It should be equal. Now, as you can see here, unless this sword weighs like 100 pounds, which it might, he's not balanced at all. He's definitely going to topple over. Like he should, because he has way too much mass on this side, right? So if you actually wanted this to work with this pose, right, where he's actually lifting his foot, you would actually need to see something a bit more like this. Let me just do a red one here because I think red is going to stand out a bit more. So here's a cool thing. Here's a cool thing. Let's see what this pose actually looks like if you were to balance the center of mass. It's gonna be interesting because I don't know. I don't know exactly if this is the pose that Clay wants, but I think, let me see if I can do this in my head just real quick. Yeah, that's about no. Hang on. It's tricky, but I think I got it. Because the sword would be out here. Here we go. So I'm just gonna approximate this torso shape. There we go. And then here you have the hands, generally speaking. So yeah, it'd be something like this. Actually, what I would do is I would probably lift up the feet a bit better. It's not gonna be perfect. If I could adjust this in 3D, it'd be a lot easier. But basically, you have hopefully an equal amount of mass. I would actually balance it a little bit more to the left. Like I would probably move his torso a bit to the left as well. But I would say something like this would feel much more balanced. Like this is more closer to like a baseball pitch pose. You know what I mean? Of course, I don't actually recommend this pose personally because of the action that follows, right? So right after this is a baseball bat swing. Now that's where it gets a little confusing, right? Because I think if you were to actually use this pose to do a baseball bat swing, it would work way differently. I don't think you could actually swing anything well with this pose. In fact, if you were to do this pose, this is as a slightly different thing. You have a different rotational axis than you want for a baseball bat, which is why it wouldn't work. So let me just explain to you that real quick, because why not? We're doing things on the fly. I have no idea what I'm talking about. We're gonna talk about everything. So this is basically another sort of principle, which is like rotational axes. So you have a rotational axis here when you lean back like this, because you have this hip that, and then this chest where like when you do punches or kicks or whatever, you think about rotational axes. And this particular rotational axis is not conducive of a baseball bat swing. This is conducive of like a hammer swing. So you can see that the angle of axes here is very much like what is like 45 degrees or something, right? Or pi over 4, whatever this is. Like this is not a great swing for a baseball bat. So what you would actually want for a baseball bat is something a bit more horizontal, right? Like a baseball bat swing should be horizontal in theory. That's what you want. So if you want a horizontal axis, you are going to want this. Now this is sort of, sorry, that's supposed to be vertical. This is sort of what he has here, but it's not quite, it's not quite balanced. So then the question is like, well, how do we keep the axis vertical, but keep it balanced? Well, it's a pretty simple thing to do at the end of the day. What I'll do is I'll go to the next frame here. Actually, I'll go to the previous frame. Hang on, let me just move this around so we have a bit of a cleaner palette. Yeah, cleaner palette. P-A-L-A-T-E. No, the other one. P-A-L-E-T-T-E. Words. All right, so what we're going to do is take this now and balance it without leaning him back. Basically, right now, this is the example of like, if we were to keep the anchor point the same, how would we balance it? Now we've noticed it doesn't work because the rotational axis is wrong for what we want that follows. So what we want is a solution that keeps the rotational axis for the following action while also balancing him in, with center of gravity. So what would I do? I think the most obvious solution would be to change the anchor point. So right now the anchor point is here. We want the anchor point to be closer to where we want his torso, which we actually do want his torso to be relatively the same as where it is now, because this is actually a good rotational axis for what we want. If that's the case, then we need the center of mass to be here. So how do we get that to be there? Well, we simply have an anchor point with the other foot on the ground. So we need both feet on the ground for this center of mass to work. Yeah, so we're going to change it that way, basically. So instead of leaning back, he steps back. That would be a lot stronger as a pose. This is actually the same issue, I realized, as the frog that we saw earlier. So, fun fact. But yeah, now we have something that actually worked quite well. And what I would do also is I would keep that foot anchored for a better sort of rotational anchor point, which is a whole other thing. But if you keep that rotational anchor point there, you have a much stronger sort of grounded rotation, which is a whole thing about, like, martial arts and other sort of actiony moves. The ground is where you get most of your power from. It's actually not your muscles. It's technically the ground, and your muscles are a conduit for the ground pushing against someone's face. Just so you guys know. Anyway, so this is what I would recommend. I think that's the biggest thing for this. The other thing, of course, as well, is the arcs. This is not a great arc for the bat. I think the bat here is going, basically, it looks like it's, here. And then if I were to draw a motion, like a smear frame, this is what the bat's arc looks like, right? And that's not hitting the ball. Because the ball is here, right? The ball is here. You're having an arc that implies that it hit a ball here when it never even, it's not even close to being there. So if you want an actually good, like this, that's basically just a phantom bat. Like, it never actually hit anything, made no contact. So what I'll say is, let's just erase this real quick. Actually, can I just hide it? Let me just hide it. Yeah. So what I'll do instead is actually, actually, let me make that red instead. Red instead, because that is wrong. Bad arcs. And granted, in video game stuff, again, like, these kinds of animation things are forgivable in video game lo-fi, but because we're not technically a video game lo-fi project, technically, since it is animation at the end of the day, we want to push it to the realm of what's possible with us and try to increase our quality, right? So anyway, let's see what we can do with this arc instead. So I think the biggest thing is, these poses are sort of fine, but this pose is not. This pose is not conducive for the arc that you want to do here. So for what Clay's trying to do, I think is something more like this. And if you use reference, you'll notice that baseball players have an arc like this. I used to play baseball, so actually I just sort of know what it should look like because I've swung a bat before. But generally speaking, bats actually go quite low in their arcs. So this is actually a much better arc for the swing that you want to achieve. And then when you actually swing here, you want a better line of action because you want essentially this thing to go. You want to go here, right? You want to cross this path. So what you're going to do is you're going to have the end result be here, right? So if the bat is closer to this area, now you have a sort of 3D arc that arcs around sort of like here, right? So that is the more ideal arc if you wanted to actually have it hit the ball. The other option, of course, is just to have the ball, like, I don't know, land in the right spot. Like if the ball was here, like that would also kind of work. And it would just go this way, you know, like that's fine. But like that's only if you're trying to do that. I don't think that's what he was trying to do. So if we want it to look more like a baseball, yeah, putting it there. You could also put it, I don't know, here-ish. This might be a better spot for it. It's a little far away, to be honest. Like from a baseball perspective, I would say like ideally the best place to put it is like in this center line here. Like that would be better. But like from a silhouette perspective, like it's kind of fine to just put it here. That's not a bad idea. Anyway, so yeah, bam. That's a much better arc. Look at that. Look at that. Let's turn this one off here. Boom. Boom. So yeah, that's the main thing I would say there. Cool. Let's see. What else do we have? That stuff's cute. I think this is honestly fine. Like that. That's fine. Because again, it's the style. It's a very minimalistic I'm hurt animation. And it works. There's a lot of ways you can do I'm hurt. And like this is one of them. It works. You can go more detailed on it. You can do other things, but yeah. Oh, here we have another thing where we're reaching behind the back and we're clipping. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually reused the same animation for the most part, but yeah, I would again do I have the same notes for that. So yeah, nothing to share there. Let's see. So now he's got a Nintendo Power Glove. Clipping through the sword. I'm actually okay with that because I do like this arc better for the hand. So that going out here and clipping the sword, like it's fine. It's not a bad idea. I would say that like if you are gonna bring the hand back, maybe just rotate the torso this way instead. You know what I mean? Just to oh god, yeah, just to have the torso be a little bit less forward facing. That way, that would actually reduce the clipping a little bit and make the animation feel a little bit more natural for the arm swing there. So like, yeah, having the torso do that would be better. I keep forgetting to switch my colors. My colors. Anyway, but yeah, that's the one thing I would say there. And then we're gonna go into the. Well, you can see it in the stream. And then we're gonna go into the next bit, which is. Oh boy, oh. Skateboard. Whoa! Whoa! Wait, yo. That is whack, yo. That is whack. What kind of transition is this? Okay, we'll have to fix that. I mean, this is up to you ultimately as, you know, a director, but I can't agree with this. I think this is that's too much. We're dealing with the same issue with the camera work, by the way. This translation plus rotation that's sort of arcing around. That's no good. We don't want that. Yeah. We don't want it. We don't want it. Again, we want to treat the camera as if it's a real person. Can a real person run in a curve like this, zoom into someone's chest, and then somehow zoom past him on the other side? No. It's very jarring because we don't understand as a viewer what the hell happened from our perspective. And it takes us a little bit of time to reorient ourselves. We can do it, but it's like, it's uncomfortable. And I think like, I mean, there's so many other options. I would recommend a cut more than a zoom, to be honest. Like a cut would be way better. So I would actually just, yeah, probably put it like, I mean, if you were to just cut this here, let me just hang on. Let me just try this. I'm just gonna cut this where it is, and we're gonna bring it to the next shot here, just to see if we can like survive a cut. Yeah, it's not the greatest either. So these angles are need a little bit of work. So the main thing is that like you're basically flipping to the opposite side of a character without warning. That is inherently jarring from a camera work perspective. Like you don't want to do that. There's a reason why the 180-degree rule is a thing. That usually refers to like over the shoulder shots and conversational shots. If you have like, you know, someone who's talking to somebody or facing somebody off in the battle, you want to keep the camera on the same side of them and not ever flip it 180 degrees ever. You want to keep it within the 180-degree mark. Now, even so, even though you can kind of get away with it with a single character, it's gonna hurt. And at the end of the day, there are technically other characters in this scene, right? So it's like you're breaking the line quite a bit, and I'd say especially here. So I would actually not bring the camera this way, and I want to keep in mind. Let's pretend that the 180-degree line is here, right? Hang on, let me just draw this in 3D space. Like let's just say that the 180-degree line is, draw like a cube, a very long cube. Can I get this perspective right? Oh God. Let's see if I can. Things I do for education. This is painful. Yeah, I think right here. There we go. Looks more or less correct. Yeah, sure. So just pretend this is like a line. I'll pretend to draw an arrow at the end of it if you guys, if that makes you feel better. The rectangle is a little weird. So let's pretend this is the 180-degree line, right? So now we can actually see this in 3D. If this is a line that we can't cross because we have this guy and this guy. That's basically where I'm drawing the line, by the way. I draw it as like a direct line between like the two people who are facing each other. Let's not cross this line. Now, if we go back to this shot and we just think about it, where is this guy in 3D, right? So this guy right now, if we imagine, the frogs are over here, right? Because he's facing that way. So the frogs are over here. Okay, cool. The frogs are over here. Okay, cool. The frogs are okay. Okay, where's the line? Where's the line? Oh no. Oh, we're back again. Okay, that's fine. We're good. Oh, hang on. Where's he? Oh God. Oh no, we crossed the line. We crossed. Oh God, no, it's still going. Oh, gee. Yeah, so that's bad. We crossed the line. So that's not good, because then you just go back to this particular area where the line is like not crossed again. And I think that's just, I mean, it feels unintentional, and it feels like a lack of control from the camera's perspective. Like from a director perspective, it's a lack of awareness. So I think what you need to do here is actually just change this angle so that you're far and away removed from this line, so that you're actually closer to being like the camera should probably be closer to like around here, right? So if we were to draw the blender camera, I mean, again, it can still be pretty rotated, but like, yeah. So this is the blender camera, which for those of you guys who don't know is just basically a pyramid with a little triangle on top, right? So that's the blender camera. We'll get a little active camera icon there. Cool. So I would recommend a camera that's more like this, so that you're staying heftily away from this line here, right? So yeah, stay on that side of the line if you can. That would be great. That would be wonderful. Okay, cool. And then that way, if you're looking from that side, this angle actually will be far less jarring. Like it's just gonna feel natural. It's gonna feel great. You're gonna love it, and you're not gonna be like, why did he just suddenly change direction? That's so weird. Because then it would actually, because first of all, you know, this scamped board will actually look probably a little closer to this angle, and like the person will probably be like around here, right? And then you switch to this side, it's sort of like, oh, cool, it's just like a different angle of like the same thing. Versus like here, it's sort of like you're not sure where he's facing anymore. It just gets a little jarring. So let's give that a shot, and hopefully that'll help a little bit. And then again, I would completely take out the zoom. The zoom adds really nothing. It's not a good transition because it's just very jarring. And then, yeah, I mean, you could bring it back if you bring it linear. I wouldn't be opposed to it entirely if you keep the 180-degree rule intact. if you think a style choice is appropriate there. But I personally don't think it's necessary. A cut is fine. Yeah. But again, that's more of a subjective thing, I guess. As long as the 180-degree rule is obeyed, we'll be fine. So then we have this part, which is pretty much okay. I think that's fine. Obviously, like from an arc's perspective, going around the trees like that is not great. So right here we have just this motion here. That is, again, forgivable, I think, for the game animation, but if you want it to feel a bit better from like you're animating a guy on a hoverboard kind of thing, I would actually say it'd be far better if you just simply did this. It's a very simple change, but it could add a lot. So you already have here a lean, which is good. Leaning on hoverboards is a good thing. Plus sign. Because like if you actually have a lean, you get to have a much more natural turn. But the problem here is that you're turning outwards and inwards really suddenly for basically no reason at all. So the arc right now feels a little bit like this, right? It's a bit like this. Yeah, like this. That's basically what it feels like. Which is like, why do that? Hang on, I gotta change the color here. There doesn't seem to be a very good reason for it. That's my main issue. It's like, it just seems like an afterthought. Like, oh, the tree's in the way. I might as well do that. And it probably was. So if we were to correct that, I would just say this. Just make the arc look like this, right? Like that's better. And then at the same time, if you can, lean the character during this turn, right? Lean the character a little bit. That'll feel just 10 times better already. Yeah, so that's the only thing. I would keep that arc just a little cleaner, and then have him lean a bit. Cool. But that's it. This one. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. I think the glasses animation is cool. I'll go to the glasses animation real quick, but I want to review the rest of this. I'm gonna come back to the glasses. Death animation is good. Victory animation is good. And I think that's it, right? Nice, yeah. These are both pretty passable. I really enjoy this one, actually. I think it's pretty cute. The only thing I would say about this is to use vector interp, because I can tell that the frog is slowing down right before he hits the ground, and it's not ideal, right? Because it kind of looks choreographed, it looks fake, it doesn't look like it actually hurt anyone. So if you want to do that, what you want to do specifically is right here. That's a clear slowdown. I would make sure to speed that up, and he would actually reach the apex of his fall a frame earlier, but keep everything else the same. Now, if you have vector handles, that'll pretty much just take care of it for you. But like, if I were to just try this out real quick, I'm kind of curious about it. Just gonna push that forward. Yeah, so the body animation already feels better. The rest of the bounce and stuff still has the same issue, so I can't get rid of the issue entirely, but the initial fall already feels a little bit stronger because you don't have that random slowdown at the end. So that's what I would recommend. That's a small thing, but make sure to use vector interpolation. Now, if you guys don't know how to use vector interpolation, I'll just show you real quick. It's very, very easy to do. This is what I mean by a bounce. So a quick live animation session here. If you were to go boom, boom, boom. This is gonna be a quick bouncy ball animation, I guess. Bouncy ball exercises, yeah, in 2 seconds, easy. Look at that, easy peasy. So let's do it in real time. Do a bit better timing would be good, right? So you can see how if you just do the default is this. This is what I'm kind of seeing from Clay Aga's like frog animation. That's what it kind of feels like. You have this bounce that doesn't feel quite bouncy enough. It kind of feels like it's just shaking, right? It's like an elastic band or something. So you don't want that. You want to just add vector interp, which is just with the handles here. Boom. Significantly better with very little effort. Same keyframes, by the way. Same keyframes. So that's how that would go. I think that's a pretty easy change that would go a long way for that particular thing. All right, now let's talk about the last thing. Let's talk about the glasses. So this is, first of all, I love this animation overall. I think it's hilarious. I think this particular part is hilarious. but I do think the animation could use some work, right? This is obvious. I think like when it comes down to it, the style and everything is like kind of made to be lo-fi, and that's fine, and this works for that style. But let's talk about what we can do to make this look a little bit better if we wanted to. First things first, we have the same sort of like elbow leading thing that we want to do here for the grab thing behind my back, put it on my face, kind of look like we're still missing that. Same thing as the other two in the same animation. But I would say for the actual placement of it, a couple things. From a silhouette perspective, here's this is a small thing I would recommend. First of all, I think the guy should probably look at his glasses. So let's just rotate his head a little bit, right? Let's rotate his head a little bit. So he's slightly, ever so slightly looking at his glasses. Because most people look at their glasses when they put them on. Because they kind of have to, right? Because that's the direction that things are pointing. And then when it comes to these glasses here, the fact that this is about to poke his eye is bad, right? So you actually want to make sure that there's enough, I don't know, like thoughtfulness when it comes to like how the practicality of this will work to have a believable animation. So I would actually say what you want is for the glasses to actually be more like angled this way. Something like that, right? Oh god, this is actually really hard to see. Let me try. Yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna use a different color. I'm gonna use a different one. I'll make it white, I guess. It seems right. That's visible. Yeah. So I would definitely do something like this, closer to that, you know, a little bit closer to that. And then that would give us a bit more of a natural look. Now, other than that, I would also say the hand placement could be improved. So one of the main things about the hand placement right now is that as he gets to this point, right? As he gets to this point, hang on. As he gets to this point, the hand is blocking everything. I can't see shit. Come on, man. Come on, silhouette. So the hand is a big blocky thing, which is not something you can control. But if you do have a big blocky thing, maybe don't put it just, you know, in front of your face. I think that's something that if you want to see the face, and the face is a very important part of this animation, I would make sure that it's visible. So what I would say is, instead of, you know, blocking the face out like that, a very simple change would be to grab the glasses in a different location. So I would actually just grab the glasses in the corner here. Now, I need to use white, hang on. I do think that this will just be a simple change of like where you parent it. So it shouldn't be too hard. But I can definitely understand why, if you parented it here at the beginning, you would think that putting the hand in the middle of the face is necessary. Because I mean, it would be. But yeah, just hold the glasses there instead, and then you're good. Hang on, this is going to have to be way higher, but I think the angle of this is wrong. But anyway, you get the idea. The hand should be a little bit closer to the edge of the glasses rather than the middle of it. So yeah, if you do that, you'll have a hand location probably closer to, you know, I'd say the glasses will be like somewhere around here. There we go. And then you would have something like this, where the hand, this big old blocky Minecraft hand, which I've animated before. It is hard. I definitely agree with that. But you can get away with things if you just understand where to place these blocky bits a little bit more strategically. So yeah, plus this is a more natural pose anyway. So now you have this really cool pose. You can kind of see much more Miami Vice, right? And which is, I think, what we're going for. So now, take a look at that. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I like that a lot. So we're gonna do that. Nagato, thanks so much for the pay. Thank you. But yeah, so if we have that, what's the only thing? Also, there's like a little bit of a snap there. So again, you already know the hand placement could be better. But if we have that, the next thing would be just to make sure this arm cross thing is working. I actually think it's hilarious the way it is, because I think it's like, this is how I imagine it, kind of like a dude. I don't know if this is what you're going for, Clay, but I imagine it's like a dude just like throwing double peace signs, you know, like that. This is my headcanon. Wait, did I do that right? No, sorry, hang on. I got two left hands. There we go. Yeah, so I think that's hilarious. But if this is supposed to be an arm cross pose, then that's a different story. Because, yeah, if we were to do an arm cross pose, it would be a little bit more challenging, to be fair, just in general, because of the hand blockiness. But it would look a little different. I don't think you're trying to do that, though. Are you? Yeah, let's assume that you do. Because if you do, oh man, I don't even know if it's possible. If you do, you should just give up. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible with this particular model. Because yeah, these hands are huge. These toaster hands are not going to be compatible with a simple arm cross. So I'm kind of down for the just a double peace sign. So let's just pretend that you're gonna do like a just like a gang sign. I think if you were to do that, you should actually just pose it a bit more liberally here, where you have a lot more clearance between the arms. So you have something a bit more like this, right? So it's a bit more straight armed, right? That would work better, I think, just in general. But yeah, that's my thing. This is also fine because of the toaster arms. Like, I understand that it's just a style thing too, but I would try to minimize clipping, like especially right here. Like that part should not ideally clip. So I would just pull this arm, even if you were trying to go for the crossed arm look and you just had to do what you had to do. I would still bring this arm a little bit this way so that you could hide that other arm behind this one. You know what I mean? And then you'll be in much better shape, I think. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Overall, I think this animation is hilarious and it's great. So huge props to Klayaga, and thanks again, Klayaga, for submitting this. Thank you. I'm enjoying these so far. But yeah, let's just watch this back real quick and see. We just go over some things. Yeah. So the main small thing is that, like, I think that running animation could have been improved a little bit. We have that there in the notes later. These idle animations are great. I think these are going to work fine for the style, especially. And then we have a bunch of cool stuff here. Yeah, this is the only thing I had to say about the run. It will look a bit less like skating if you lift up this foot. So right now it looks a bit like he's skating, just a little bit. But that's because the back foot is not lifted up enough. So you lift that up a bit more, it looks more like running. And then that's great. Zoom, not so great. You need to get rid of these Bezier curves if you want to zoom in that suddenly, or it's going to make people nauseous. Figuratively, I don't think anyone's actually throwing up, but I think it has the potential to. And then get a better windup for this. Have a stronger line of action. That's going to be really strong. It's already a great pose and great animation, but it could be pushed a little further. So that's the main thing about that one. You can see the line of action is a little bit better too if you just push that arm forward a bit, and you'll be good. And then let's see. That's a great animation, to be honest. That one just works great. Yes, the baseball. Yep. We just have a couple things there. Center of mass, big thing, center of mass. I recommend just placing the foot back instead of leaning the character back. This is an option, but I don't think it's a good option for what you want to do. Because you want to keep that horizontal swing, and then you'll be good. Interestingly enough, if you kept this vertical swing, then like the lean back would actually be fine, arguably. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, those are your two options there. Yeah. This is great. And then the 180-degree line. You gotta make. Oh, it's crossed. It's crossed. Sad. Don't cross it. Don't cross it. Yeah, and you don't cross it pretty much anywhere else. Like this is like kind of fine. But yeah, and then I would just get the glasses there. The glasses are a big thing. Just the angle here for the skateboard hoverboard thing. That's gonna be a really simple change that helps a lot. And then here, glasses, and then at the very end, we just have this vector interpolation thing that I would recommend. So like just a bit of a bounce there, the vector. Cool, that's it.